What's up guys, it's Micmastodon back in my practice TerraFirmaCraft world to do another walkthrough. This is the series where we pick an aspect of the mod, take a look at it, and in this one we're doing the specific ways damage and weapons work in TerraFirmaCraft, and basically just some tips about the mod to get you through your first night without dying too much, or dying at all hopefully. Now, just like anything, the first thing you need to do is pick up sticks, pick up rocks. I've gone and given myself full stacks of these just so we don't have to worry about that. So one of the first things you're always going to want to do is go to your napping screen, and if you just make a T like this, you get 2 stone knives, and then you take those, you put them in your crafting grid, add some sticks, and you have 2 knives. Now these are good because with knives you can cut down the tall grass, get yourself some straw, and you can craft the straw in a 4x4 pattern, or 2x2, I'm sorry, to make thatch. And thatch is a very useful first building block. So you can make a first house out of thatch, and that'll give you a little bit of protection for the night. The other thing you might want to do with these rocks is make yourself an axe head, and that's just the corners, and then these like L patterns on the other side. And with the axe head, give it a handle, and you have an axe. Now you can cut down a tree, but maybe more importantly, both axes and knives can be used as weapons, and we'll get to that a little bit more in a minute. But in the mod, you always want to aim for the bottom of the tree, and it'll drop the whole thing down. Now, there are a couple other types of weapons that you can make right away in the game with the rocks. One of them is a javelin, and I keep going to my inventory instead of my napping screen. A javelin is you cut out 3 out of 3 of the corners, and that makes a stone javelin head. And again, give it a handle. That's a javelin. Now, before I move on, the one other thing you can make out of rocks that can be used as a weapon is a hammer, and that is, it's too wide all the way across, and then 1 extra in the middle. That's your hammer head. And again, I'm running out of inventory, but the idea is you put the handle on and you have a hammer. Now you have all different types of weapons at this point, because in TerraFirmaCraft there's different types of damage. There's slashing damage, and that's done by axes and swords. There's piercing damage, that's done by knives, javelins, and arrows. The javelins and the arrows are the 2 ranged weapons. Everything else is a melee weapon. Crushing is done by the mace and the hammer. So if you make them, you now have hammer, javelin, axe. Those are the 3 different types. Also the knife is a piercing. It's often recommended that you make a bunch of javelins in your first day to survive your first night. I disagree, and that's for a couple different reasons. Number one is using the javelin as a ranged weapon. It gets 1 use, and then it's gone. Now, I have another one here in my inventory, and it automatically dropped down to my hotbar. That's nice, but early on in the game, inventory is at a premium. You can't make chests until you've reached the metal age and you have a saw and you can make planks to make a chest. So you can't really store items in bulk. You can make the clay pots, but not everything goes in there, including tools and weapons. So you don't really have a way to get the javelins in, and you can't make tool racks early on either. So So I find that with the javelin, it just fills up your inventory if you have any number of them, and with the durability on the stone ones, very limited. Let me demonstrate here. Okay, here's a zombie, and he's going to allow me to demonstrate. Now I've turned on this additional mod, the damage indicators mod. It's showing me that he has 900 hit points. That seems like a lot. It kind of is. If I tried to hit him with something that's not a weapon, I take off 17 hit points. That's the bare hand damage you do. Now, I'm not entirely sure how many hit points I have right now. But if I do F3, it should tell me 771. Now let's see how much damage they do to me. It depends on where they hit you. Damages depend on whether they get you in the head, the body. Uh-oh. Now, if I hit them... See, I'm taking off 100 at a time with the javelin itself. And I'm gonna die, guys. This is why I don't like the javelin. See, now it's gone. Okay, I've switched back over to creative because, as was obvious, it was hectic. The first night, or the first time the mobs come at you in TerraFirmaCraft is crazy, and most people just recommend you run away. I agree with that. I think running away is probably the best option early on, if you can't make a thatch hut and get yourself safe. But now let's take a look at some of the other weapons, and I'll explain why I don't like the javelin. Aside from the fact that it takes up all your inventory, it's slow to release. It's cumbersome. In addition to that, if you run into a skeleton, you're dead. I mean, you're dead. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. But here are all the weapons generally in TerraFirmaCraft. You won't be able to make a sword right away or a mace because those can only be made out of metal, not stone. So those are kind of out for your first night. And the bow and arrow is also out. You can make arrows, but the bow requires the 3x3 crafting grid, which requires a crafting table, which requires planks, which requires the saw, which means you're going to have to be in the metal age. So that's pretty much out for the first day. Then the only other thing about the javelin is with a quiver, that makes it somewhat more useful because you can store a whole bunch of them in a quiver and it doesn't take up inventory. But you need leather to make the quiver, and you won't have that your first night because leather takes barrels, and barrels, again, take planks, which means you have to be in the metal age. Alright, now let's take a look at how some of these weapons work against some of these mobs. Now, the zombies, they use slashing damage on you, which is important because different types of armor give you different levels of protection depending on what type of damage is being applied to you. And it's complicated. It depends on the metal. It depends on what piece of armor it is, whether it's your helmet or your breastplate or your boots. So I'm not going to really go into it, but I will tell you that the zombies do slashing damage, but they're also vulnerable to slashing damage. So you'll do well to use slashing damage against them, but crushing damage they're strong against. So let me give you an example. So these guys have 900 hit points. With the sword, which is slashing, I can do 300 to 500, depending on how good it is. Now, with the mace, which is the same material, so it should be essentially the same level, 100, 28. Well, I think that might have been the end of his hit points, but it's almost 3 times as much. With the piercing, somewhere in between. 156 with the knife. Now, here's why I say you're dead against skeletons with the javelin. First of all, they're ranged, you're ranged, so you'd think that might help you. They are, and I use black to indicate, they are immune to piercing weapons. I'm not doing any damage. Okay, 1. The javelin. Same deal. Even if I shoot it, I'm not doing any damage. You will never kill them this way. However, with the crushing, 500 plus. With the slashing, not so good. In the 100 range. It's gonna take a lot of shots. But nothing like your bare hands. Look at how bad bare hands are against mobs. Uh-oh, he's gonna get out. And the wither skeletons from vanilla are converted into javelin skeletons in TerraFirmaCraft. They have even more hit points, but they're also vulnerable to crush, strong against slash, and immune to piercing. And of course they do piercing damage itself. Now here we have creepers. They don't do any TFC specific type of damage. They do explosive damage. But they are vulnerable to the piercing, which is good. So that is one use for the javelin. And they're strong against the crushing. So with a knife, 400. With the mace, 100. Spiders, a lot of hit points. They don't have any particular vulnerability or strength, but it's important to know they do piercing damage with their bites, I guess. So I'm getting 270. I'm getting in the high 200s no matter what type of weapon I use. Now, did that creeper blow up? Endermen are vulnerable to all types of TFC damage. Should be about all equal. But they have 4,000 hit points, so don't know if I want to demonstrate this. They're just gonna teleport away. But as you can see, it's in the 250 range, and of course they take damage to rain. Now bears. They are hostile in TerraFirmaCraft. Not so much in real life. I run into bears in the woods, in the wilderness. They didn't necessarily attack me. I'm still here to tell the tale, but they are hostile in TerraFirmaCraft. If you get too close, they will attack. But they're not the traditional vanilla hostile mob in the traditional sense, in that they don't despawn. They are persistent, just like neutral mobs are. The wiki will tell you that the piercing javelin is effective against bears. I did 300. I can do 400 with a knife. And I can do similar with the mace. And not as much with the slashing. The more I do it, the more I say, yes, they are vulnerable to pierce damage, but it's certainly not as noticeable as with some of the other mobs. So it's almost anything, but piercing is the one with bears. So that should give you some idea how to protect yourself, what it takes to protect yourself in TerraFirmaCraft. The various weapons you can make out of stone in your first day, the knife, the axe, javelin, and the hammer. You can use the knife to get your straw, make thatch, build yourself a little bit of a shelter. And then the only other thing to know is how to make light, and if you don't know this, I'm just going to do it really quick. You need some sticks, and you throw 3 sticks into one block. Be careful not to pick them up, and then light them with a fire starter, and make sure it's covered because rain will put it out. And then you right click on it, and that brings up the GUI. Add at least 1 log. That will get it burning. and it'll start to heat up. And if you put a stick in there and give it a few seconds, you'll get 2 torches. And then you can start lighting up your area, and that'll help to keep the mobs off. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please leave me a like. If I get likes, I'll be inclined to do more of these, and I'm hoping to. Although it's going to be a couple weeks because I'm going on vacation. But thanks for watching. I'm Micmastodon. This is TerraFirmaCraft. These are all the weapons. And I'm out. Come on, you stupid bears! Bear!